We're joined now by Mark Allison, a chaplain with the Veterans Administration in Salt Lake City. Thank you for being with us.
Good to be with you, Rebecca.
We're reminded of our soldiers in that story, our fallen soldiers as well, and it made me think about the families of deployed soldiers or troops. They deal with a day-to-day fear in the back of their mind that many of us have no idea what it's like to wonder if my husband, is my wife safe today? Is that part of your work as a chaplain, to deal with the fear that eventually they may lose their loved one?
Every day. Pray every day and manage it the best that we can. We chose this profession of arms, and we sort of know what goes with that, but it is a constant stressor and issue, and we pray a lot.
Well, we have a call already, and let's take that now. It's Rusty in Salt Lake. Rusty, thank you so much for calling. And what is your question tonight?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Beth Cole was still on, but maybe the chaplain can help me. My brother was murdered several years ago, and it's been unsolved. And when it's so tragic and so violent, I can't get over it. I get angry still over losing him, and I'm wondering, will it go away once it's solved, or is it? I was watching it, how they talked about grief comes in waves, but the anger is still there. I have so much anger in me for losing my brother that way.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for your honesty, and I appreciate that, and I'm so sorry for your loss. What is your thoughts there, Chaplain?
Well, I'm sorry for that loss as well. It's just tragic. We identify it as complicated grief. It's sudden, it's tragic, it's ugly. How long do we grieve? As long as we love. And she's always going to love this brother, this relative, this family member. But we need to channel that energy, those feelings, that anger. Usually below that is some fear or some hurt or some sadness. And if we go there and express the intensity of it, we tend to notice the anger subsides.
So there may be that she feels like unless there is a suspect who is arrested and held responsible, that she doesn't have the place to put and vent that. But if you were to advise her whether or not the case is solved, where would be a healthy way or a healthy place where she can really recognize and honor those emotions and get it out?
Well, there are groups that help, others with similar experiences. There are those who can give competent compassion to her through this ugly journey, so she's not held hostage to this. The collateral damage of a murder is just horrendous and wide, but there is hope and there is help. The hope that in a bigger sense there is life beyond death, and we're going to be reunited with that loved one, and that gives us some hope. Help, there are those in our community around us who have experience, who have the compassionate heart and the competence to help navigate the emotions that go with this.
And on our website, of course, on kbyu.org, you can find resources, specifically who you can talk to, people you can talk to, so that you can get the help and maintain that hope together and hopefully heal. What is the difference between grief and mourning?
Well, for me, in my experience, grief is what we all feel when there's a loss, whatever the loss. We're speaking about death tonight, but it could be divorce, it could be the loss of a body function. It's a loss, and whenever we have that, we feel that internally, the sadness,
the emptiness,
the emptiness, the anger, the anguish. Everyone has that, but not everybody mourns. Mourning is what we do with it on the outside. We cry about it, we talk about it, we channel those emotions in a constructive rather than destructive way, whether it's sports or a hobby of some sort or journaling. We channel it and direct it in a way that it doesn't destroy our lives.
So part of the healing is recognizing that you may be grieving, but you might not have really mourned, and that's why you're feeling like you're surrounded or drowning in the emotions, because you still need to give yourself that mourning time. We have Pearl calling in from Tooele. Pearl, thank you too for calling. What is your question tonight?
I lost my dad on the last day of 2003, and I haven't grieved over him because he died of hypothermia, but yet when my grandpa died last year, I was able to grieve over him, and I'm wondering why was wrong? Why haven't we grieved over my dad yet?
So she's experienced loss twice and is identifying a different experience both times.
I don't know the answer to that. It suggests that there's something very powerful, unresolved within her heart, her mind, her soul, and perhaps she'd be best served seeking some professional therapy and discover what that is and express it. It sort of sounds like delayed grief. Delayed grief really ends up being doubled grief. We need to grieve as we experience a loss. And when we suppress it, deny it, try to avoid it, dodge it, it'll come back, and it'll come back with a vengeance. So I recommend that she engage someone who is familiar with grief and bereavement, complicated grief and bereavement issues, and get some help with this. That's okay to do. It's not a sign of weakness.
Delayed grief, and I think for many of us that's the first time I've heard that, but it makes sense because here we are 7 years later and still trying to figure out why it's delayed. By the way, our phone lines are very busy right now. We were trying to get to each of your calls, and you're welcome to still continue calling in at 1-800-298-5298. Your role as a chaplain combines spirituality and mourning. What's the connection between the two?
Well, I think it's a very powerful connection, as I mentioned earlier, about hope. Hope is a thing of faith and a spirituality. In our Christian tradition, we have the scripture, mourn with those who mourn, rejoice with those who rejoice. Hopefully, we mourn with one another and not try to avoid those who are grieving because we don't know what to say.
Instead of keeping our distance from them, right.
Well, that can bring a secondary wounding experience to someone who's already wounded when they meet someone in a grocery aisle who they know and they see each other and they go a different direction because what do I say? What do I do?
We don't want to reopen a wound. I think that, I mean, I'll say that very often we're afraid we'll worsen the pain. And what's your advice that way?
I advise engage the emotion, engage the encounter, don't evade it. It's better to kind of stumble and fumble your way through it. Hey, Susie or Rebecca, whatever, I don't know what to say to you other than I'm sorry that you've had this loss. I'm very sorry. How can I best serve you? But don't avoid it, and don't avoid the people who are experiencing it.
Otherwise, it's a double loss, isn't it?
It is a double loss.
As well as their loved one. We have Laura calling in from Grantsville right now. Laura, thank you for calling in. Ask 11. Go ahead and ask us what your question is.
Hi. I heard somebody say that it's been 8 years, and it's been like 20 years for me. And I've heard of something called complicated grief, and I was just wondering if they have information on that. We were involved in a bad car accident, and I was driving, so I know there's guilt involved. I don't even remember for sure what happened, so they say I have some PTSD from it. But anyway, it does feel complicated and very draining to me. I have moved on to some degree, but I feel like there's a big part of me that's still kind of back there wondering what in the heck happened. And so I just wondered what kind of suggestions you guys might have for me to feel more peaceful.
Feel whole again, most likely. Thank you for your call, by the way.
The first thought I have as I listen to that question is, when is the anniversary of that tragedy? That is a pivotal point, a trigger time. I'm interested to know when that is. Is it imminent upon us? That would be a good juncture to re-engage it, to look at it, maybe get some help, as I mentioned earlier, with this. We talked about spirituality. In the Bible it says, blessed are they that mourn. Well, if we look at it in reverse, if we don't mourn, we won't be comforted, because if we mourn, we will be comforted. It's natural, it's normal. We need to cry about it, we need to talk about it.
We need people to validate our feelings.
To validate it, and if we're stuck in our grief, we need some help, and that's what we should ask for.
So if it's still feeling complicated, it's still feeling unresolved, then reach out and get more help.
Absolutely.
And continue the mourning, and then be aware of the triggers that would occur. One of the most painful losses of a loved one or someone in your life is the loss through suicide. And I guess we always want to know, what was that person thinking? Why is it that they would ever devalue their life? And talk to us a bit about that. You have experience in that way. What is going through the thought process of someone who is thinking about suicide as an alternate?
There are many reasons. Suicide remains an enigma in so many ways. There are so many precipitating events and factors involved. But my experience is generally they just want to stop the pain. They feel a lot of pain, especially emotional pain. It could be physical pain as well, or spiritual pain even. They want the pain to terminate. The problem is people who complete suicide do not terminate the pain. They transfer it to the living, to their loved ones who remain with the pain. They'll never get over that. And so we want to discourage it as best we can. Just in the past 5 weeks, I have personally engaged 3 different people who are on the edge of suicide. Random, out in public, didn't plan the event, didn't plan to meet that person, just happened, and they were seriously thinking of suicide. And I give them an opportunity to share what's going on. Tell me your feelings. Tell me about your anger, your guilt, your fears, your sadness, your loss. And I try to give them a sense of hope and that there's help.
And as we just saw on the screen, individuals who can't stop the pain, they can't seem to get control, they can't think clearly, they can't make decisions, all of those emotions are going on in their minds. And so that would manifest itself in certain behaviors. So what warning signs should we be looking for so that we can recognize maybe what's going on in that person's mind?
There are many. An example would be if they're giving away their belongings, say, well, here, have my boom box, or you know, my car, I don't need it anymore, whatever it is, tending to just get rid of some of their things, like they're checking out. If they're thinking and talking about death and dying and morbid things, if they're becoming a recluse, and that fits a context of something bad has just happened, they lost their job, or someone else they love died, or even a pet. There's something that's happened recently in their life, and now we see a change of behavior.
You've mentioned some of them, and we've got those on the screen right now. They've had a severe loss, a recent one. You said recluse, they're withdrawing from their friends, experiencing drastic changes in their behavior, so the person you used to know doesn't seem to be there anymore.
That's right. They're doing things that are odd. Didn't used to smoke or drink, now they are. Or they're just, their behavior.
What about their appearance?
It could even be their appearance, but that isn't necessarily always the case.
So these are warning signs because they vary so much. We put so many out there because it's individual, depending on the person that is out there. When you deal with grief, especially with suicide, are the experiences of the grieving, the person who you've left behind, are their emotions any more traumatic than someone who loses someone, for example, from an unexpected illness, maybe some type of illness that you thought, okay,
like
there's
cancer?
a good, cancer. So I mean, are we expecting stronger emotions from that, and how do we deal with those?
My experience is yes, because they're sudden and they're tragic. The car accident, the murder, the suicide, killed in combat. When there's sudden and unexpected, they catch us off guard. Even if we're sort of in the combat situation, for instance, kind of tense and wondering and worrying and praying, still the shock, it's like a meteor has hit our world, and it's just sudden and it shatters everything around us.
What a great symbol, because that is something physical you'd see and notice if it's a meteor. But when it's a loss of someone immediately, the damage is internal, isn't it? We've got a call right now. It's Christine in Salt Lake City. Thank you so much for calling us. Well, how can we help you tonight?
Yes, I have a son who has a 12-year-old daughter. Well, she's 12 now. He committed suicide on her birthday. So when we celebrate her birthday, do we mention her father at all on her birthday, which is the day he also committed suicide? Because the second anniversary is coming up in a couple of months, and we wondered about that.
What a thoughtful question.
Or do we avoid?
Again, I'm sorry for your tragedy. My suggestion is, again, engage it. Have a place at the dinner table for him. Mention his name. Don't avoid it and deny it and act like it didn't happen. I might try to reframe the situation. So he completed suicide on his daughter's birthday. Maybe we could frame it in such a way that this is Daddy's birthday into eternity, the same day you were born onto this earth life. I don't know if that would help, but it's something that comes to my mind right now.
But avoiding the topic is not the answer.
Adults need to model for kids how to grieve, how to mourn, talking about it, crying about it. It's sort of like storm clouds that have come over, drop the rain, we cry about it, and then they blow by. But we don't try to dodge it and avoid it. So moms and dads and grandparents model for the kids. Hey, it's okay that you're sad. It's okay that you're mad. Kids often, you know, when they've lost a parent, become very clingy to the other parent. They're afraid of losing that one
Sure,
too.
naturally.
And it's a scary time for them. But if we can model how to channel those emotions, I think we're going to help them.
So when that birthday celebration comes up, honor her birthday, honor her life, but have another way to healthily respect the fact that that is the day that her father had passed on as well.
I think so.
And that sets up the model for the children. Chaplain Mark Allison, thank you so much for joining us. It's been so very, very helpful.